Okay, so we have Tamika here, and maybe we'll have some others popping up along the lines, but for now, let's just get right on into it. So, just to start, ancestral healing is something we do when we notice that there's a harmful or toxic pattern or cycle that we're repeating, or maybe we see in our family is repeating, excuse me, in one or both of our family lines. So, like I said, we may discover that we're repeating these or that other people around us are. Okay, so even if you find, and I'll get more into this in a second, but even if you find, like in my case, and I'll go into some examples in just a little bit, but one of those examples is alcohol addiction. This, thankfully, is not mine. Okay, thankfully, for whatever, maybe it's in, my soul's blueprint. I don't know. I haven't truth tested it yet. But for whatever reason, although alcoholism runs rampant throughout my mother line, it did not come into my field, thankfully. But that doesn't mean that I can't heal it for my, maybe not so much for myself, because that's not something that I struggle with, but for other generations to come forward, that are going to come forward, and maybe even some that are already here. But like I said, I will get into that, but just to let you know that you may find that the toxic cycle or pattern is something that may or may not directly affect you, but it does, in your family line. So biologically speaking, we have what's known as a mother line and a father line. Okay. And these lines branch off with both sets of grandparents and so on. So your ancestors, right? So let's say even to, if as a baby, if you were adopted or raised by a non-biological caregiver, you will still be a part of that mother or father line, or mother and father lines, depending, okay, via programming and learned behaviors. Okay, so even if you're coming into this class, whether you're watching it on the replay or Tamika, who happens to be here live right now, that if you're even if you one parent was not even there, like in my case, I was raised by a single mother. I kind of had father-esque figures in my life, but they were all abusive and garbage people, and I don't consider them actual like fathers. But my biological father was not a part of my life, but he is still a part. I still have a connection to that father line through biology. Okay, so like I said, biology factors in, but it's not the end all be all. So like I said, even if you were raised, by non-biological parents, you'll still be a part of that line through programming and learned behavior. Okay. So let's say, just for an example, let's say, like in my case, I'll just use myself as an example. Okay. So the closest thing I had to a stepfather, okay, he was in my life for a few years, but he sexually abused me the entire time, and physically abused and sexually abused my mom the entire time. Okay. So had that been something, I mean, we ended up breaking free of it, and there's more to that story, but had we continued on in that, right, that could still be a learned behavior that I didn't, thank the gods, but it could have been something that either started in his, that was probably something that happened in his ancestor line, right? It may not have started with him. And then it could have, and then it continued on with me by the sexual abuse. And then it could have continued on, right? Either not me necessarily being the sexual abuser, but being in a victim type of mentality, being on the victim end of things, just continuing that victim cycle. So again, that's another example, but I will get back to that. So just to check in real quick with Tamika, if you just want to type in yes or no, am I going too fast? Because I talk too fast when I get going. So are you following? So you can type in or just come off mute, whichever. No, we're good. All right. Okay. So like I said, we're going to go into some examples here. Okay. So I do have my notes off to the side here as always to try and keep me on track because you know me and I'll just go all over the place if I don't have something to focus on. Okay, so some examples, which some I've already mentioned, but some examples of harmful or toxic patterns and cycles include various forms of abuse. So being the abuser or being the victim of an abuser, excuse me. So that one pretty much speaks for itself, but just to go off a little bit on that one. So continuing on being the abuser is, you could see that. So you typically will see that. Honestly, in my experience, I've seen it more so in the father line than the mother line as far as being the abuser goes. This is not always the case. Women can absolutely be abusers. 100%, I've seen that. But in my experience, I've seen it more so in a father line where it typically will start back in ancestral. So it could go back, great, 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 whatever, grandfather, right? And it just moved on and on and on that, something happened to that person and they became, aggressive and became an abuser. And this could be any form of abuse. Okay. So, and it could be all forms of abuse depending on who it is, but it could be physical, mental, emotional, sexual, like any, manipulation, anything, controlling, any of that kind of behavior, right, is abusive behavior. And so that could just be something that moved on and on and on. And sometimes it can even snowball, right? Because trauma gets involved. Okay. And so that can snowball as well. So, and then there's also the victim of the abuser. So even if you get out of, so I'll use an example. So with my mom, for example, because she's been through a lot of abuse. Okay. And it started with ancestral. Okay. So I won't get too much into it right this second, but this was a program thing that, so I know that my grandfather was abusive to my grandma, and he was sort of mentally, emotionally abusive to the kids. Okay. So she already has that in her mind, that of being a victim. Okay. And then so she goes from that relationship to, pretty much, I mean, my as far as I know, my biological father, they weren't really in a relationship, so I don't really count him, but he was non-harmful as much as I have been told. Okay. He was not a harmful person. But every relationship that she went into moving forward was abusive. She got stuck in this cycle because from early childhood, right, it got programmed into her. So it became this cycle of her being a victim of every relationship she got in. Okay. And up until she decided, you know what, I'm done with just relationships, right? She was just like, you know what, this is just not worth it, right? She didn't know about ancestral healing or any of that stuff, and she has a lot, I won't go into it because it's her own personal thing, but she has a lot of mental health issues and she's very easily triggered. So it's not something where she felt like she was able to ever heal that pattern on her own. So that is something that, even though I'm not personally affected by that cycle, I am not a continuous victim. I can look at that. I can look at my pattern and say, that is not me. I did not become an alcoholic. I did not fall into victimhood mentality, or that, like, not victimhood mentality, but being the victim cycle, that just didn't fall in for me. But I could go back through ancestral healing and heal that for her. Okay. On her behalf. That doesn't mean that she would just, boom, be better, right? It just means that, let's say I have a child moving forward. I have no plans of this, but let's just hypothetically say I have a child. Chances are, because I've done that healing, my child won't won't become part of that cycle. My child would not become part of the I'm a victim in every relationship cycle. Okay. Because that has been healed. So you might find that you do it for yourself or you do it for a future generation, but sometimes you'll notice that if you've done it a few times, because sometimes you do, or if there's members of your family that are just spiritually open to it, they don't even know that this is happening, right? This is something that's happening on the spiritual plane, right? So if they are spiritually in resonance with this, I mentioned a resonance field before. So if they are spiritually in resonance with receiving this type of healing, you might find that they'll come out of this cycle that out of nowhere, they'll suddenly drop that person that's been abusing them, or they'll change their own patterns of abuse or what have you. So sometimes that happens, not all the time, but sometimes. Okay, so we have that as an example. Okay, and again, another example is the drug and alcohol addiction. That can be a cycle. Now, that can be learned behavior. It can also be through genetics. So it's been proven that alcoholism can be passed down through genetics. Again, thankfully, even though genetically speaking, alcoholism runs rampant through my mother line. I can't say from my father line. I don't know that line on like on a physical, like I don't know these people, right? I might know them spiritually on the spiritual plane, but I don't know them, just sitting here in front of you. So, but I know for my mother line that it runs rampant through there, but that's genetics. It's not just learned. Some of it could be learned, but some of it's genetics. For example, again, just to touch on it, my mom has always had this, right? This is something that since she was little, she just had like a craving for like beer or whatever, right? Like for the taste of alcohol, it was just like candy to her. Meanwhile, I have a sip of alcohol and I'm like, that tastes like yuck, right? It's not even just like I don't want to be an alcoholic. I've seen how that goes. And I mean, certainly I don't want any part of that, but it's really like the taste of it. If I have a sip of beer, I'm just like, oh, I don't like it at all. For her, it tastes like candy. So it's just like a genetic thing. So you have drug and alcohol addiction. You can also have eating disorders. This can also be something that is moved down through the line. It's typically in line with something else. So it could be something like the sense of control or, excuse me, or my next example here, which is perfectionism, which is something that I recently did the ancestral healing for, is perfectionism. So those two can kind of tie together, the eating disorders and perfectionism, tied in with like some control and stuff like that. And then we have some other ones that are a little, but these ones are more of a cycle that's taught that I'm about to say. This is not really I don't believe, maybe I'm wrong, truth test it, but I don't believe these next examples are things that are genetic. Okay, these are taught. Okay. And that's things like racism, sexism, nationalism, any of that type of stuff, right? Like, I don't believe, in my experience anyways, and again, truth test it, maybe I'm wrong, okay? I don't believe anyone is born hating another race, right? Like, a white baby doesn't just come out the womb hating Black people, right? That's taught, right? And that can be something that is, taught down the line, right? So just for some examples, okay? Now, what do I want to say here? Okay, so I already mentioned this bullet point I have here, which is when you heal these patterns and cycles, you do it for you and future generations, but you also may see it in current generations as well when you do this, okay? Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of practice here, but you know what, we'll do this first. Okay. So we're going to go with a quick little practice here. I think I'm swallowing too much air. I had to burp there. Sorry. Excuse me. So what I'd like you to do is to do a truth test. So if you're not sure what truth testing is, I did a class on it a couple weeks ago. Go watch that. But what we're going to do is a quick little truth test. So we're going to truth test a pattern or cycle your higher self would like you to heal. Okay, so you might even have something consciously. You don't even have to, maybe you don't need to do the truth test, but you may want a truth test. Something may just come up. Okay, something might just pop into your brain, but we can truth test. So what we're going to do first, so to truth test, this is how I do it. Okay. So I always put my hand on my heart, my hands on my heart, close my eyes, take a deep breath. And then you might say something like either, hey, truth, or hey, higher self. What pattern or cycle would you like me to heal in my ancestral line? Okay, and maybe you'll hear it like a thought. Maybe you'll feel it. You'll just know it, right? We're tapping into all of those psychic clairs that I talked about in a previous class. Okay. Okay. And then if you know what it is, I want you to then ask for the point of origin. So the ancestor that sort of started this ball rolling, right? So you might say, hey, truth, or hey, higher self, who is the point, who is the ancestral point of origin of this pattern or cycle? Okay. Okay, so you might receive an image, okay, because we're still on those psychic clairs, right? So you might have received an image of the person. You might have received the year that this person started this cycle. May have heard it, felt it, just know it, right? Okay, just sort of accept whatever came through as as right, as truth. Okay, that's really key. Okay, I'm going to take a sip before we go into the meditation. Actually, before I go into the meditation, is there any questions? Wait, oh, I had a theory on that race topic. Okay, would you like to share your theory?
So I do believe that that is something that need to be healed because
Mhm.
technically, if you look at people who were because are we taking into consideration people that's been reincarnated as well in our family? So we
Mm,
have family members that were slaves and they brought that trauma with them from
yeah.
being killed or whatever, because there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of theories out there saying that these people need to heal from that. And now knowing that in my past incarnations and stuff that I have, that we all have things we need to heal from. So
Mm-hmm.
what happened if that behavior and that, I guess you call it the karmatic, whatever we're born with,
Mm.
um, that's something that need to be healed from them. So to a certain extent, it's not about them, because some people sometimes they're like, I don't care for. I didn't met some people that don't care for Black people, and they don't know where it came from. Their family's not like that or anything, and they just don't know. Oh, excuse me. Because my ex-husband was like that. He don't care for Black people too much, and his family is not racist, and that's crazy because we were married, but he just don't know where that comes from. So I do think a little bit that is something that need to be healed, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why they keep saying that people still have an issue with slavery and stuff and getting over it. It's because if they reincarnated and they used to be in that timeline, that can be where it originated from in their family line, because it wasn't too long ago. So maybe a little bit it could play a part.
Yeah, and I will say, part of some part of that, may not all of it, but part of it, you might want to also truth test: is this even mine, right? Or is this even ancestral, right? Depending on the, you can change up your truth testing verbiage, if you will, because some of it could be that it might not be ancestral per se. Like you said, it's reincarnation, right? So you might still have maybe in a past life you yourself that had nothing to do with this particular family line could be bringing forward, not you specifically, Tamika, but the general you, okay, could be bringing forward some past beliefs, uh, whether they're racist or sexist or nationalist or any of that hate crap, that anti-LGBTQ, all that hate crap, that can be stored in your energy body from a past life, and you will bring that forward. So yeah, I guess in that aspect, you could technically be born, you could be born racist in that sense. So yeah, I could see that for sure. And then that's where you would have to do, if you so chose to, right? Which I would hope so. But if you chose to, you could then heal that on your behalf. That wouldn't necessarily be ancestral because you're the one bringing it forward, versus it being like something that's through your ancestral line. Okay. So yeah, but yeah, for sure. I could see that for sure, Tamika. Okay. So I was about to go into this meditation, and then I got like a little ding ding for myself before coming to class that a lot of this meditation is based off of forgiveness. And I got this little ding ding in my head that not everyone is going to be comfortable with the forgiveness part of this meditation, which is totally fine. Okay, there's no, if you felt like, because when I'm going to go into this thing, okay, I'm going to go into this meditation for healing, and healing, forgiveness is part of that healing process, but it's not absolutely necessary in order to do this. Okay, and I can see how, because I'm also true crime obsessed. Okay. And I've seen how some people who, I mean, they are by far better people than me, who are able to forgive, the most heinous acts, which I could never, right? I'm like, I'm not that woke. Okay. Like I could never forgive that, or I don't think I could anyways. And then there's other people who, like me, are like, nah, and I will just say this, it's not about them deserving forgiveness. When you forgive someone else, you're setting yourself free. Okay. But there are times when you can set yourself free without forgiving that other person that did you wrong. Okay. Like you could have the most horrific experience with somebody, maybe they really hurt you, they raped you, they tried to kill you, something really terrible, right? And you're just going to move on with your life. You know what? That's a thing that happened. I'm healed, right? I went to therapy or counseling, I did the healing work. That guy doesn't need to be, I don't need to forgive that guy in order to move on with my life. Okay, that happens. Okay, and if that happens to now, if it's something where you're still kind of stuck back there, then you need to do some healing work for yourself. Okay, again, you don't necessarily need to forgive that guy, but you can sort of drop that cord, right? And say, I'm moving on without that. Okay, so I'm going to do forgiveness as part of this. It does not, you don't need to do that part if that doesn't feel right for you. You can do the rest of it. You do not need to do the forgiveness part if it doesn't feel right for you. Okay. Okay. So we're going to go into this meditation. So first things first, make sure that you're sitting or lying down, preferably sitting, because if you lie down, you might fall asleep. But get into a comfortable position. If you're sitting like I am, okay. So back straight, shoulders back, right? Spine straight, but not straining. We're going to get comfortable. Maybe close your eyes. And we're going to take some deep breaths just to kind of get into the space, okay? So just take a couple of deep breaths, just get relaxed. Okay. And then when you're ready, this is really going to be based on visualization, but really, if you have difficulty, because I know some people have difficulty with visualization, it's just enough to intend. Okay. You can just use intention here. Okay. So we're going to bring in, so when it came to the truth testing, and we said, okay, what pattern or cycle, okay, would we like to heal? Then we're looking for the ancestor point of origin. So we're going to look at your mother line or your father line, or maybe even both, because like attracts like, and sometimes mom and dad come from very similar backgrounds. Okay. So if you'd like, if you haven't done this already, maybe take a moment, and if you need to, truth test it, right? Hey, truth, hey, higher self, is this from my mother line? Is this from my father line? Or is this from both? Okay, just take a minute. Okay. And then from there, just mentally bring mom or dad or both into your mind's eye, into your energy field. Just bring them forward. Okay. And then from here, we're going to tap into that heart chakra, that forgiveness, unconditional love, and compassion energy. And again, if this doesn't feel right for you, you can skip this part. But from here, we're going to forgive them for continuing this pattern or cycle. Okay, so just mom and dad, I forgive you. Okay. And then if this feels right, ask for forgiveness for hard feelings you've had towards them for continuing that cycle. So you're going to ask them for forgiveness for any hard feelings that you've had towards them. You might even use the Ho'oponopono mantra, which is something like, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Okay. Now, starting from there, we're going to ask for the ancestors all the way back to the point of origin ancestor to come forward. So all the ancestors from that line or from both lines, ask them to come forward. Okay. And again, we're going to go do some forgiveness work. Okay. Heart chakra. So this is forgiveness, unconditional love, compassion, empathy. Okay. So if it feels right for you, forgive them either individually or as a whole, moving from most recent to the point of origin ancestor. So you might just say, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you, right? Like a lineup, or just as a whole, I forgive all of you. And go all the way back. And then when you're ready, again, you're going to ask for forgiveness for hard feelings you've had towards them. So not even just your mom and dad, but you're going to ask all of your ancestors all the way through to the point of origin for forgiveness that you've had, for forgiveness for hard feelings that you've had towards them in this cycle. Okay. If it feels right for you. Okay. Okay, now with with or without, but typically with the support of the point of origin ancestor, we're going to collapse the pattern or cycle, starting from the point of origin ancestor all the way to yourself. So even if you found that this isn't a pattern that you continued, you're still going to add yourself into this so that, you know, you're helping to keep future generations from having to deal with this. Okay. So even if you don't, you like me, you have no plans for future children, you're going to include yourself in this anyways, as a way of helping to, it's like a preventative measure, if you will, for future generations. Okay. Make sure I have all of this. So I'm going to collapse this. So what you're going to do, again, either through visualization and or intention, is you're going to visualize your point of origin ancestor, and then maybe in a line or as pictures, whatever comes up for you, all of the ancestors between your point of origin all the way to yourself. So all the way through grandparents, mom and dad, and you, okay? And then you might, if you open your eyes, you might see that my hands are at one end. I like to bookend, okay? So I have one end and then the other, okay? Or if you'd like to, you can close your eyes again, and then you're gonna move your hands closer and closer together. And as you do this, you're collapsing this pattern and cycle. Okay, so we're gonna collapse, 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 collapse. Okay. So you're moving your hands together. Okay. And then once your hands are together, so you've collapsed from point of origin through to yourself, and you're moving your hands together, you're going to meet in the middle. And then when your hands come together, you've collapsed that pattern or cycle. Okay. You've now healed that cycle. So future generations will not have to deal with this. Okay. And then if necessary, you may want to take a minute here to forgive yourself for being a part of the pattern or cycle in the past, if necessary. Okay, so if you were a part of this, you might want to forgive yourself here. And if not, or even if you did, whether you forgave yourself or you did, it wasn't necessary, go ahead and place your hands back over your heart space. Maybe take a couple of deep breaths. Okay. And now you may intuitively know the answer to this, but if you're maybe a little unsure, you may want to truth test just to be on the safe side, right? Say, hey, truth, or hey, higher self, was this healing successful? Okay. If it's a yes, awesome. If it's a no, you may need to do some tracking. Now, you may want to do this now, or you may want to do this at another time. But if the answer is no, it may be, you may in truth test this to find out where the resistance is. Okay. Is it on your end? Is it an ancestor? Maybe it's someone, like a aunt or uncle, someone in this mother or father line that's kind of peripheral, if you will. Can't say that word properly, but just find out if there's resistance, if there is, where it's coming from. Okay. And it may be something that's, you may even get an answer that says not right now. Okay. Which means that's a suggestion to come back to it. Okay. Okay. So truth testing aside, just when you're ready, let's say that this healing is now complete. You will thank your ancestors from point of origin all the way through to mom and dad, and maybe even yourself. Say thank you. Go if you must, stay if you will. Okay. I will usually end off with a blessed be. You might say amen or whatever you believe in. Okay. Just to kind of close that up. And then when you're ready, you can go ahead and release your hands from your heart space if you'd like and open your eyes. Okay. I don't really feel like we need to ground on this one. If you feel that you do need to ground, go ahead and do that. But okay. And so, since at the moment, Tamika is the only one here who's with us live, I'll just ask either you can come off mute or leave it in the comment or in the chat, or you don't have to at all if you don't want to share. But just gonna ask, how are you feeling? Do you feel like this was helpful? Or if you have anything you'd like to share?
No, it was. And it's kind of funny because I'm really getting used to what light codes and when things drop into your spirit, I guess that's what you call truth testing.
Mm-hmm,
So I think the line came from my birth father because I had a stepfather.
mm-hmm,
And it's crazy because I don't know him like that. And automatically, the first thing that popped in my head when you was like, show me the ancestor that it originated with, never
mm-hmm,
met his mother before. She died before I was born.
mm-hmm,
That's where I know where it started at. So that was kind of crazy. And I was like, well, how would I know that? And I don't even know much about him. But from what I do, and I learned the last couple of months, that's the first thing that popped up. So
mm-hmm,
sometimes I'll be like, oh my God, did I know that or did I make that up? So I got to get more comfortable knowing that, hey, if it dropped there, that's your intuition, that's your
yeah,
answer saying that's where it's coming from. So yes, and I
okay,
knew that's where that situation came from and the collapse. And like you said, even though I don't think I'm picking up on that,
mm-hmm,
I ended it with me too, because just in case I don't want that to pass on to my kids, because I know with his other kids, that's a pattern with them as well.
mm-hmm. Okay, awesome that you did this work, and you can continue to do this. I will, of course, I mean, there will be this replay. I will, of course, have class notes as well. But and so you and that have steps for this particular meditation, so that because as we mentioned before I started the recording, though, that this type of healing work, like when we do this personal development or spiritual development or any of this type of energy work, there is no there, right? There is no, well, we'll be fully healed in any stage, right? It just gets less difficult, right? We just learn to be a little more there's more freedom as we go, but there's always another layer. That's kind of the rub of this work, is that there's always, we can heal one layer and there's going to be another and another and another. So that's kind of the rub, and it can be frustrating. But every time we, heal or, heal that layer, there's more liberation, there's more freedom there, and then we can expand and then we can help others, and it becomes a whole ball of awesome. So it is totally worth doing this work, but it it it's hard work, and it is a lifetime journey, right? So I'll just mention that really quick. So, but this is a meditation that you can come back to, as needed, to collapse any toxic or harmful patterns. You can also do this. I didn't include it in this one, but you can also do this type of energy work, this ancestral energy work, when it comes to what I want to say, like genetic stuff. So anything that's maybe like a cycle, right? It's come down through, so you might have illness or disease, um, or there's also, what is it called? Oh, what is it called? I can't remember the words for the name of it, but there's been uh, proof now. There's some scientific proof that generational trauma is in genetics now. So you might have, grandparents or great grandparents that went through like the Holocaust, and now you're finding that your children are somehow being affected by that and through their genetics. Um, so there's that too. So you might want to go through and do some collapsing and healing there. In that case, right, there may not be a lot of forgiveness work there, but you might want to do some collapsing, some healing, of that, find your point of origin. I see that. See, that's what I was saying on slavery. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah. So when it comes to the slavery, or like I said, anything that was like traumatic, right? So you might have had one or more, um, what I want to say, ancestors that went through incredible, long lasting trauma. And that actually gets encoded into their DNA, into the genetics, and it gets passed down from generation to generation. Okay. So you can use this or a similar meditation to collapse that as well. So, and again, it may help you. It may help those who are currently going through it, and it will most certainly help those in future generations. I hear a knocking. I just don't know if it's on my door or a different door. I don't know. I don't think it's my door. Okay, sorry. So yes, so you can do this with genetic healing as well, because that's also, everything is energy. I don't know if you heard me say this a million times already, but everything is energy, including genetics. Okay, so you can heal that with energy, right? With energy healing. So, okay, so before we go, so not too bad on time, not too bad on time. Okay, sometimes I go over, you know how I do. So before we go though, because that was pretty much it. Unless there's Tamika, unless you have any questions, excuse me, or additional comments, I'm just going to go through with a quick card reading here.
The only thing I wanted to say, just in case
Mm-hmm,
anybody else needed a refresher, because I almost kind of forgot.
mm-hmm.
Now, what were you saying about the people that were adopted or like another parent, a step parent raised them? You can't collapse theirs or do any healing on their timeline, right?
Well, it depends, because if it's a taught thing, okay, so if it's a genetic thing, um, this is not something I've personally experienced, so I can't speak to it. But if it's something that is been programmed, or like like something that's been what was the word I used earlier, a learned behavior, then yeah, you can,
Okay, yeah,
because
and
it's
that's what I'm referring, like
yeah,
alcohol abuse,
mm,
drug abuse,
yeah,
and stuff
yeah,
like that. If they're
yeah,
adopted and their adoptive parents are doing that. So you say you can
yeah,
heal them too if it's something that's taught.
yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, track it.
Mhm. Okay. So now I've learned, I'm going to take my background off, because I've learned when I do cards, it doesn't show up when I have these backgrounds. So I'm going to take that off. No background, just a white, boring wall behind me. Okay, so we're going to finish off with the cards. So we're going to see if there's anything that are the higher self, that are ancestors, maybe that came through, or some guides. Oh, that came right straight through. Okay. So I don't know if this is for you, Tamika, or just in general. Let's find out. So we have worry, and I'm going to read the thing in a minute, but just to kind of show you the card that came up. So we have worry. I am learning that worry doesn't change an outcome. Okay, so this could be, let's see, it's feeling to this. Okay, so I'm feeling like this is actually just guidance, not necessarily like, this could be ancestral, but it's not necessarily like an ancestral healing type of thing. For some people that maybe are watching the replay, maybe this is a ding ding for you. Maybe this totally speaks to the ancestral healing that you've been guided to do. But I'm feeling like this is more guidance of like letting that worry and the anxiety and all that crap go. Anything that's like that worry or anxiety type of energy, I feel like this is guidance to kind of let that go. So this could be a suggestion to do some ancestral healing around that, right? If you have a learned pattern, or if you have anxiety, maybe either learned or through genetics, to go back and do some healing through that. That could be that. Let's see. And letting go of worry for those future generations. Now that you've done, so that I'm there we go. So now that you've done some done some healing, now you don't have to worry about those future generations having to deal with this stuff, right? They're this isn't going to be in their energy field unless this is part of their soul's blueprint, which has really nothing to do with the family line. They could be born anywhere, anytime, right? And this is going to be part of their blueprint, which I talk about more so in the Akashic Records course that I'm doing for Udemy. It's almost done, I promise. But so yeah, this is just letting you know, you don't need to worry about those future generations anymore. You can let that go, right? You can go ahead and just breathe a sigh of relief and let that go. But this is also guidance for you that you can let go of your own worry and your own anxiety, okay? Now that you've done this work. Just trying to see if there's anything else that wants to come through before we leave this class. Okay, so I'm feeling like, even though it's just me and Tamika here right now, that maybe there's someone in the replay. I don't know. I'm picking it up though, that this is something that's been this worry or this anxiety that's coming through here is it's been blocking your crown chakra. There's this anxiety and worry that's been blocking your crown chakra. So with this energy healing, I'm feeling like that's going to help to unblock that. So maybe it made it cause an imbalance, but I'm feeling like it's a block. Okay. And I'm feeling like now that you've done this healing work, even though it's ancestral, so like I said, maybe it came through genetics. I don't know. But I feel like now that you've done this work, that block is gone. It's been taken out. Okay. And I just feel this block has been like kind of removed. Okay. Like I'm getting this image. I mentioned it, I think, in the last class, where it's like the Harry Potter when they take the memory out and they get like this what is that? It's like a what was the word well, you know, if you watch Harry Potter, then you've seen when they take the memory out, right? It looks like this little glittery thing, right? And I kind of feel like that is what happened there. That was pulled out, okay? Or you might even see it like with Jenga when they take out a piece of the one of the blocks, right? So it's remove that piece, okay? And so that's going to help you with the opening up that crown chakra and being able to process in those codes that I talked about lots of classes ago at this point. So, okay, is there anything else before I shut up? No, I'm just getting lots of love from those ancestors. So keep in mind that these ancestors too, you have ancestors that are a part of your spiritual team, right? They're part your spirit guides. Okay. And so you have a lot of those with you that are just like cheering you on. That's what I'm really feeling too. That's coming through as well. That they just want to be like, great job. You know, you're killing the game. Good job. We're here cheerleading you and you're doing great. Okay. Okay. And that is our last class for the Accelerated Awakening. It feels, to me, it feels like it flew by. Like I know it was 5 weeks, but it feels like it flew by. So I might also continue doing additional classes. I love doing these lives, even though there's sometimes where I go off in tangents, or like in last class where my brain is like, right? I have those days, but I'm really feeling like if I do another class anytime soon, I feel like I'm either going to do something on money. Money's really come up. And I think even in our last class, the abundance card came up. I think it was abundance anyways. So I'm really thinking about doing a class around money and clearing money blocks. But we also have October coming up, and I'm thinking about doing some maybe like October ghosty, you know, Halloween type of theme, maybe doing some mediumship stuff or just doing some ghost stories, maybe doing some guidance. All right. So if any of that sounds like something that you want to be a part of, go to the group and let me know so I know to do it. If nobody wants me to do these classes, I'll stop doing them. Okay, yeah. So yeah, if you want me to do any of that stuff, Tamika, I see you're off mute. Did you want to say something?
I didn't even realize I was off mute.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
that must have been my guys because I was thinking something in my head. I was like, nah, I tell offline. But one thing that me and Brittany have been discussing, and I think with TikTok, it's became big.
Mhm.
There need to be a class on manifesting because people be manifesting things and I don't think they know how the laws of attraction work, and you
Okay.
have to be mindful what you're manifesting, with your intent that's behind it, because I don't think they realize intent play a big thing. So when you was talking about
Yeah.
money, that's the first thing that popped in my head. I was like, oh my God, all these YouTube videos, people telling people to manifest. I was like, do they really know sometimes when you manifesting and your intention ain't right, sometimes it come at a cost to other things, and that free will, which I don't even like free will like that. So
Mhm.
yes, that's a class you should teach. That's another one that I think people should talk more on: manifesting and meditation and intent, because those things they got to learn instead of just trying to manifest and just don't even know what they're doing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, for sure. And I'll mention too, just really quick, that one that kind of bummed me out because it was so like true is that my Reiki master years and years and years ago, I was talking about how like into the secret I was at the time, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't like like the secret or manifesting things like that because you have like bad people who manifest their ill intent, right? So he was like, you might have like a pedophile who's manifesting a victim, right? Like we don't want that. We don't want to teach them how to do that, right?" And I was like, "Oh no, that's terrible." But yeah, so looking at intent, yeah, exactly, for sure. So yeah, that's for sure. Maybe I'll do one on money specifically. Maybe I'll do one specifically on just general manifestation for sure. So yeah, so if there's anybody who's watching the replay and is like, yes to any of these or all of these, please go to the group and let me know so that I know to do those classes. So it's not always just me and Tamika, which is awesome. Love Tamika, no problem. But if there's more people that want to be a part of this live experience, let me know so that I will do more of these. Or even if you just want, because a lot of my YouTube and Udemy content is scripted. So even if you want something that's a little more scripted and less off the cuff, let me know and I will do it. Okay. All right. So with that said, we have hit the 1 hour mark. This is the last class for the Accelerated Awakening. But like I said, if you want me to do more classes, let me know and I will do them. Okay. So thank you so much, Tamika, for being here. And thank you to those who are watching the replay. I hope you have a great rest of your day and I will see you in the group. Okay. Bye.